Good evening, everybody. It is Monday night all over again, and we are here on Zoom in on a fresh conversation with Briana. Hi, how you doing, Briana?
Hello, Donna. How are
How are
you?
you?
I'm great.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you
Briana is
for having
coming to
me
us
here.
all the way from Indonesia, everybody. So it's
Yes,
late
all the way
over
from
there. It's
India.
early morning over here. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you,
Zoom in
Donna.
on a fresh conversation is sponsored by Eilish Diamonds LLC, brought to you by Milton McCulloch, author of Love and Emancipation and host of Night Talk, LD Robinson from Ladero Press, and the Fresh Book Festival 2022. If you have any questions for Briana, please leave them in the chat room, and or this will be recorded early so we can just put them on Facebook and then she will answer them. So let's just get right to it. So Briana, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I often get asked this question, Donna. Like, so I'm kind of okay. So to tell me a bit, to tell you a bit about myself, rather, I would say that yes, I'm an author, and I'm the author of two published books. My first book, A Journey with You, and my second published book is Behind the Curtains. My first book, Journey with You, it's a romantic fiction, and my second one is a erotica. Uh, I'm also in the process of publishing my third fiction, and
Mm.
that's a psychological thriller. Uh, as I say, I'm an author. I guess I always
Can
wanted.
you tell us a little bit about being in Indonesia? Just because we probably will never get there. So tell us about the islands and what it's like to live
Well, it's a beautiful archipelago. So Indonesia is known as an archipelago. So it's a collection of islands together, and I would say it's beautiful. Basically, I'm Indian, so I'm from India, but I stay here, I work here, and ever since I started working here, Donna, I would say it's beautiful. I've never felt like going anywhere else from here.
there. Wow.
I mean, Singapore is quite near to Indonesia. I mean, it's just a 1 hour flight between Jakarta, the capital city here in Singapore. And there are a lot of good offers in Singapore too. But I never felt like leaving this place. I'm so impressed by this place that, my second book, Behind the Curtains, is actually based in this place. The setting is here. So, readers who have read this, or if you read this, you'll find that most of it, 90% of it, is um, based on Indonesia. So, you can
Mm.
understand how much I'm in love with this beautiful, beautiful archipelago.
So it gives us a like a panoramic view of how it is to live there. You talk about being in Indonesia, your characters live in Indonesia. That's really nice. That I tell people all the time that reading will take you places that you'll never go.
That's right. That's right. So, and my second book, Behind the Curtain, talks about, it doesn't just talks about the plot and the characters, but it also gives you a very nice idea of the place, the setting of the place, and it's I mean it's wonderful with its beauty and with its mystery and its everything. I would say it's a combination of both. It's beautiful, at the same time it's mysterious because. Um, there are beaches everywhere. Even there are places where there are hills. So it's hills and beaches at the same time. So uh, everyone has
Just
something
a
to.
mixed of environment, a mixed environment, right?
It's a mixed environment, and there's something everyone to love about it. People who love hills, they do have it. People who love beaches, they have it, and even people who love deserts. You won't believe, Donna. I mean, there are particular places here that are deserts. So you can understand the place, like how varied it is. Like it has so many things for nature lovers.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's like living in Florida. That's what I love about living here. You can get up every day and either go bike riding or go to the beach or walk
Yes,
or
yes.
yeah,
And I think
unless it's hurricane season, now that's a whole different story. But
so I think it's great for authors, Donna. Like you can understand that probably. Like authors always need things, they are looking for ideas and they are looking for characters and plots. And I feel places like this, they give you a lot to write. Uh,
mm,
they give you that scope to think about it and come up with new things. So in that way, it's been quite a blessing for me, I would say.
hmm. So please tell us when you published your first novel, how was that experience and how has it changed over the years?
Uh, my first novel, as I said, A Journey with You, it was published by Lighthouse Publishing, and by the end of 2017, and through Amazon.com. So you get it in Amazon.com. Uh, well, that was, you can understand writing your first book and getting it published, like what kind of experience it can be. So, uh, you know, first it was thinking about something. So there was just a thing in my mind that I have few memories in my mind, which I should pen it down and I should write it. The next thing was uh, a challenge, a big challenge, of course, which many authors would be able to identify with me, was to get your work pitched to a good
Mm,
publisher and
mm-hmm.
then get it published. And I would say more than the writing, that's more of a challenge to get it published. Um, so I was lucky enough, but I did have my ups and downs while publishing my first book. Like many other authors, I was rejected by many publishers until one of them finally accepted it, and they wished to publish it. So there was my break. So, and carrying a task to completion, I mean, having a task in your mind and then completing it was my first goal. And then my feeling when you have that published book in your hand and then seeing it, okay, and this is
Yeah,
nice,
it's
your name
like
on
giving
it.
birth to a baby.
Yeah, and the cover page designed by me, and when you see that, the front page and your name kind of highlights there by Briana. So I think that was a kind of experience. I mean, um, that was one time. I don't think I'll ever be able to go back, because since now already my second book is published and my third one has also been accepted by a publisher, will be out soon. So that was a one-time experience,
So are
which
you from a literary family? What made you decide that you wanted to be an author?
no, I'm not from a literary family at all. So, and of course, I was not, I was not planned that that one of my aims in my life is to become an author. I never thought that um, one day I would be an author. So when I thought about a career in my life, it was always 9 to 5 jobs in a company, um, getting a good salary. Right now, I'm a teacher too, but it certainly occurred. I don't know how it happened, Donna, but then I feel it was a good experience with me. Uh, so I had few memories of my childhood. So I was born and brought up in India, in a particular society, in a particular city, uh, that was so beautiful for its scenery. I mean, it has its own scenic beauty, but then it had some kind of evils in the society too.
Hmm.
And I just grew up in that environment. So one fine afternoon when I was in my office cabin, and it was a lazy afternoon, I was just enjoying my cup of coffee, and those memory kind of, it flickered in my mind, it just flashed back in my mind. And I just thought, why not write it down? So at that moment,
Ah,
was to write it down was not to publish a book, but only to write it down in a diary or something. And I just started typing it in my desktop, in my laptop, sorry. Slowly, as I started typing and a lot of things came to my mind, I pulled all of them together and I thought, why not publish it? And why not let people know about my city, the place I grew up in, and what happened, what evils I'm talking about? So that's the story of my first published book.
and so and it's not even one of the questions, but I'm thinking, so you said to your husband and you said to your family, guess what? I'm going to write a book. And what was their reaction to that?
Well, I didn't just go and tell my husband that I've started writing. I think it was after a few days, in fact, after a month or two, that one fine evening, I just revealed to him that, I've written so and so, and I've written pages, and would you like to see it? And and no one knew. I mean, they had the least idea that I would be writing someday, and then he was quite encouraging, my husband. So I'm quite lucky in that way. So yeah, he encouraged me, and he said, yes, why not? I mean, it's one of the most noble profession someone can have. I mean, writing and then getting your thoughts out to the public. It's something nice you can do always. I mean, it's not only that you're working for money, those 9 to 5 jobs, but then
Right.
you're working for yourself. So I think authors, they work for the society in one way, that they want to get their ideas in front of the audience, in front of the readers. But I feel that in one way they're working for themselves also. It's kind
Mm,
of the reward is not only for them,
absolutely.
but for themselves too.
And so I tell people all the time, this is not something for the faint at heart, because everybody has an opinion about your book and what you have to say. But I also tell them, tell me how many authors you know personally. Okay, I'll
Um,
wait.
I
The average person, the average
you
person, the average
I
person, right?
yes, quite few. I would say if you ask me that how many authors do you know, I think I can just name one or two authors that I know, and that too I don't know them personally.
Right. And
And
so this is a profession. First of all, like your husband said, it's noble, right?
mm,
And it takes a lot of work. And
it takes.
so, I take my hat off to you for even trying to be a teacher and a mother and a wife and writing all at the same time. And so when people say, "Oh, everybody writes a book," I say, "Okay, yeah, how many people write a book?" I'll wait.
So that was a nice question, yeah. Because see, I'm an author myself, and I don't know, like, if you ask, tell me name an author, like I would be thinking for 2 or 3 minutes, and probably I will come out with some best-selling names like J.K. Rowling or someone whom everyone knows, but I wouldn't name someone in my society. I don't know
Right.
anyone
Right.
author in society.
So really you are history. You don't want to think of yourself that way, but really you are a part of history. You're female in your country who's written books, who's written erotica, which is, a whole nother story. And anyway, I take my hat off to you. I think it's a wonderful and very noble thing for you to do in this time, in this space in
Thank
2021. So
you.
give us an let's talk about behind the curtains. So you did a reading for us for the International Black Read Aloud Day. Thank you very much for that. And
Thank you.
everybody was saying, well, why didn't you read more? Why didn't you read
Oh,
more?
really? Is
I
it?
was like,
Okay.
well, because we only were going to do 15 minutes apiece, right? So tell us just a little bit more about how you came up with the characters and why it was a threesome.
Wow, that was that's another story of its own, you know. And I've always, when I think about like what should the next concept of my book be. Let's see if I'm writing my fourth manuscripts, and if I think about what do I want to write about. So I've always wanted to dwell in things that are not so common. I mean, so I've always loved things that are a bit unusual, things that occur in society but people don't love talking about. I mean, probably they're shy talking about it in
Right, right,
public,
right. Hmm.
but that does exist in our society in some way or the other. So it was a challenge for me, uh, not only to write it. So when I started writing it and the idea was in my mind, so I knew that not only write it, but it would be a challenge for me to reach it out to a wider audience and to have that accepted. So that was more of a challenge to me than just to pen down my thoughts and think about the character and the plot. So, and as you say, that yes, Behind the Curtains is about three people, three of them from three different parts of the world. They come together in this beautiful country of Indonesia and they fall in love with each other. And it happens at the end that none of them can give up on each other. I mean, both two of them they do get married with each other, but still they maintain a relation with the third one. So it's a relation between threesome. It's a threesome. So yes, I've established a threesome in erotica, and I think that I've tried to establish the fact that love has no boundaries.
Right.
Love cannot always be limited to a space of marriage, or you cannot name it. I mean, you cannot just say that okay, marriage is love, or you cannot say that having a girlfriend is love. So you cannot categorize it that way. It's something that's beyond our uh, it's beyond our boundaries, and we don't know what can happen to any one of us in any point of our life. It's very much possible that a situation like this can arise in someone's life, that you fall in love with two people and you can't just give up on any one of them. You cannot just ditch one of them for the other one, and that's what happened in the story.
There's a old movie called Same Time Next Year, and it's about a couple who meet every year. They're both married to different people, but they were together for 20 years. And the
Oh,
only
okay.
reason why they stopped seeing each other, like I'm just to your point, love is love. He was married to somebody else, she was married to somebody else. At one point, she gets pregnant and she still meets him at this designated area every year. And the only time it ends is when he didn't show up because he passed away.
Oh, that's so
So,
sad.
no, I
Yeah.
mean, it is kind of sad, but what I'm saying is, I understand the concept of love
Mm.
is love, right? And you can love more than one person. And so when you wrote these characters, are they both married to different people?
No,
Okay.
three of them are, they are bachelors. They are not married. But then they come together and they fall in love with each other. So none of them are married actually.
Okay.
It happens that for some reason, two of them they get married, and
But does the
but this
relationship continue after they get married?
yeah, even after they get married to the
Okay.
end, they continue the relation with the third person. So as I said, I didn't want to categorize love within the boundary of marriage. I didn't want to give it a name that love is marriage.
Mm, mm,
Or I didn't want to say that love is so and so. So I didn't want to give a title and a heading to that. I just wanted to portray the fact that love is something that we don't have a control on. It can happen to anyone at any point of life. It just happens at the click of a moment, click of your finger. That's what happens. I mean, none of them were prepared for this from the beginning. It was not something planned by them, but
right,
so
right, right.
due to circumstances and situation, and they couldn't just uh, give up on each other. They just accepted each other for what they are. So that's the beauty of the story.
I know, it's just wonderful. So tell us, I know you don't want to give a lot away, but tell us about your third novel and how that, because they're all very different genres, right? So you've
Yes,
gone
yes,
from kind of memory, right,
yes.
about the first story, then
Yes.
to erotica, and then this one is a thriller. So tell us just a little snippet about that.
Yeah, so when I was done publishing Behind the Curtains, and I was thinking about my third story, and I've always been, as a little girl, when I was very small, I was always fascinated by one of those, psychological thrillers and mysteries where, at the end of the novel, something happens and you get to meet a psychopath or you get to meet a serial killer, something like that happens. I don't know, for some reason, I was quite fascinated, and all those, I remember as a small child watching all those episodes, by movies by Alfred Hitchcock
Oh
and
yeah, oh yeah. The
the famous
birds,
yeah, the famous ones where you always have a twist at the end,
right?
mystery. So I guess I always wanted to write something on that, and I touched upon the concept of mental health. So one of the character, the female protagonist in the story, she's a victim of mental health. uh, she's the most desirable woman a man can dream of.
Mm.
At the same time, she's a woman that can make a man jump off a cliff and give up his life. So she's a combination of both. I mean, she's too good to be true. I mean, she's someone, so if you look at her, if you just know her for a day or two, so she's someone who can be the perfect wife, can be the perfect girlfriend. So everything a man would dream of, desire of. But then at the same time,
She
she's also
crazy.
someone, yeah, she's also someone that
Yeah.
is quite dangerous for your life. She can make you just give up your own life, as I said.
Mm.
So that's my third novel, and I've called it a masked identity. So talking about an identity of someone which is quite not known to the society, it's behind her own covers. She has covered it somehow, and I think people will like it because people has always had they always love to read about things that don't happen normally in their lives.
Mm.
That's what I understand, like as readers when we read books. So if I'm
We
reading a
want to
book,
go somewhere else. We want to be in a
exactly.
fictional place. Right, right, right.
And
Hmm.
it's just like it's just like an escape from your real life and going to that life that we always think about and we always imagine and we watch in movies. So my third book is all about that. So it's about two characters. As I say, the woman protagonist, she's kind of the main protagonist in the story. She's good. she's evil at the same time. She's everything. So you need to decide whether you would like to have her or
or
just to let
not?
her.
And when can when are you gonna bring this to fruition?
Well, it's been accepted by a well-known publisher, but then due to this entire COVID-19 situation and the
Hmm.
lockdown, it's more than a year. It's a bit delayed. Probably, I'm expecting it by the end of this year, 21, or
Oh,
probably
good.
the beginning of 22. So maybe the beginning of 22 or something I can
So it'll
expect
be
it.
ready for the Fresh Book Festival.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the release of my third book. I mean, I would say I really enjoyed writing it. If you say that there's something you enjoyed it, I really writing it because it was totally my own creation. It's not like
Hmm.
my first book was based on certain true events. As I said, a journey with you is based on true events which I knew.
Right.
It was easy for me to write it. Of course, behind the curtains is not something I know of, not that I know someone whom I can relate it with. Um, but then this one is totally out of something I've never
Character.
faced.
Out of
I've
character.
never
Totally.
known someone. No, I've never known someone who suffers from a mental disease, at least. So this was something totally my own creation, and I really enjoyed writing it a lot, Donna.
Okay, so if that one's in the can, we must be looking forward to number 4.
Definitely, Donna. I'm writing two. You're correct. See, you guessed it right. I didn't talk about it, but somehow you guessed it, isn't it? I'm writing my fourth manuscript too, and yes, it's again. It deals with the corruption existing in India in some of the legal systems. So my fourth book is about the corruption in the legal system. Uh,
Oh, so you're going straight political.
yeah, it's straight political, but
Mm.
I've talked about few characters and how it can actually destroy your life. How
Mm.
a strong legal system in your country can actually destroy a life. So I've talked about few characters I've interviewed actually. I would say that's inspired by true stories. So few people I know of who didn't do anything. I mean, they were just clean, good people living in society, but they were jailed or they had to suffer the evil consequences of a wrong legal
Being
system.
in the wrong place at the wrong time,
They
someone
didn't.
saying something that was untrue,
So
can really put a spin on your life. It really can.
it can, and it kind of changes your entire life. I mean, you have certain dreams and you have certain things planned for yourself and your family, and one fine day it happens that someone comes to your door and tells you that we are taking you in for something, and you have never done that, but there's nothing, no way you can prove yourself. So
Right,
like
because once you get behind bars, it's hard to prove yourself.
it's very hard to prove yourself, and that too
Right. Once you're
in a,
in, it's hard to get out.
that's right, Donna, and
Right.
that too in a system that's corrupted. I mean, I do agree that corruption exists everywhere, but then I feel it's high time that corruption in the legal system should be looked into quite seriously,
Hmm.
because I've known many people's lives that have been damaged due to a wrong judgment or just due to the wrong system of judging them, legal
If you
system.
spend 5 years, okay, let's not even say 5 years. If you spend 2 years in the penal system,
Hmm.
when you come out, everything you saw before is changed because life
Absolutely.
doesn't stop because you're behind bars.
That's
And
right.
so, I tell everybody that it's a spiral that you do not want to take, even 1 year, because life moves very, very fast.
Very
So
fast.
I don't know if about in Indonesia. So if I went to prison for a year, when I came out, that building that was there when I went in is gone, right?
Yes, I know how it can be for people who have actually suffered the consequences of, uh, you know, uh, I've known people, I've heard stories. So when I'm writing, in the process of writing my fourth manuscripts, I've had the chance to interview a few people, um, as I said, and they have come out of jail after 10 years. And Dora, you can imagine like coming out after 10 years and you don't recognize the city or the place anymore. Your
The
family
landscape has completely changed. The landscape that you remember is completely changed.
your children whom you saw very small
Are
and
grown.
loving, yeah, they're all grown up, and it's very sad. So I would say my fourth manuscript, yes, it deals with a very sad theme. The mood and tone of the book is quite sad, but then I guess I wanted to bring it in front of the society. And as writers, it's our job to bring things in front of the society and
Exactly.
make
Exactly.
them realize about it.
I'm so glad that you're writing about that, because the other thing is, as much as we like to think that the United States is, the place of milk and honey, we know that's not the case. But I think sometimes we think that other places are so much better, right? Anytime you're somewhere, people in Indonesia think this place is great, great.
Yes,
People in
yes,
the UK think this place is great, but we all have the same types of human trafficking when it comes to not doing the right thing about people, right?
of course.
And how your life is revolved around certain things. And so it's good to know that this kind of inhuman treatment, that's what it is, of
I
people
think
who are put in
they,
the penal system, is not just the United States. It's everywhere.
it's everywhere, and I wonder why they can't just judge things correctly. I mean, it shouldn't be that impossible for to judge people correctly. I mean, there should be evidences that tell you that that person is totally innocent or the correct thing, but it doesn't happen. I mean, there are plenty of people who were in jail for many years who didn't do anything,
Right.
just clean, and they just suffered, and they were wrongly blamed. Probably someone else did it, but they were wrongly blamed for something, and they had to suffer the consequences.
So imagine the spiral in your life if you're 10 years in the penal system, in jail. You lose your mother, you lose your father,
That's
you
right.
lose family members. Yeah. So anyway, that's gonna be great. And what's the name of it again?
I didn't really think about
Oh,
the name
okay, okay,
of
okay.
my book. I started it because I'm still thinking about a name, because I would like to give it a name that totally makes it stand out. Because, as you know, it deals with a very serious theme, quite sad and serious theme. So I'm still thinking about a name. Probably someday I might come up with a very good name, and then I'll surely let you know about it, Donna.
Do you touch at all, Briana, on the fact that sometimes it's a revolving door? Like if you're in jail for a certain amount of time, you end up back. Do you talk about that at all in your new novel?
Yeah, I did talk about uh, the experiences that these people had actually inside the jail, what kind it was, what, we look at it from outside, how it is to us, but the people who have actually stayed inside and how it is to them. So I've covered each and every aspect of things that these people have actually faced, uh, starting from the kind of food that was served to them. But then in records, it's totally different. I mean, in record, they do have, a three-course meal. They show that they are serving a three-course meal with soups and salads and this and that. But then actually, that's not the case. It's totally different. So I've touched upon things that I've actually come to know from people who have faced it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad, because people don't really understand. I do have a book club in one of our private prisons, and yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty sad. So anyway, let's move on. So you have let's talk about the hardest part about being an author really quickly. What's the hardest part?
I think the hardest part of being an author is the responsibility that we take, and it's important what we write. We really have to think about what we are writing, because ultimately that's going to go out to the society and people are going to read it. And people, book lovers or readers, they do believe what authors write for them. They do believe it blindly, whatever. So if I
And they'll tell you if you're wrong. Like if you say, "Oh, this was on this corner at this time on this street," they say, "No, it
That's right.
wasn't." Yeah. So that you have to be you got to do your research too.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
that's a challenge, I think, for every writer. So let's say, like my third book, which is a psychological thriller, and I say that it deals with mental health. So when I'm talking about mental health, I cannot just write anything that comes to my mind dealing with mental
Mm.
health. It has to be something that people know of. Probably they have had people who have suffered from similar kind of things, or it does exist. So I think we do write. Yes, fantasies, of course, fantasies are there, and imagination is there. But then, even if you're writing a fantasy, you have to be very careful about the words that you're choosing to write and the themes that you're choosing, because ultimately, you're propagating those values and those beliefs which readers are going to believe it after they read it blindly. So I think that's
And you
another
have to
part.
be very careful about the time that you're writing it. Like behind the curtains, I don't know what uh year it was, what year did you look at? What year was it when these three people were getting together?
It was 2018.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that happened in 2018 that are not happening now, right?
That's
So you
correct.
have to be very careful to keep your characters in
About
that,
that time.
right, in that time frame, right?
About the as you say, Donna, when you just started this and you say today that people say that, oh, what is it to be an author? You just write something that comes to your mind, but then
No,
authors know it, like it's not that easy. Of course we do write it, but then we are writing for people, we are not just writing for ourselves. So first motivate, the first aim is to have people accept it, whatever you're writing. Let it
hmm.
be a Harry Potter, or let it be a biography of someone, or a fiction or anything. So ultimately it's people who are going to accept it.
And they don't understand the research it takes. When you're typing and you say, okay, da 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 da, oh, let me look that up, or let me. So sometimes it'll take you 3 days to do one page because you're doing background history and you're talking about mental health. So you just can't come out the box and talk about mental health like you know what you're talking about. You really have to do some research on that.
I had to research a lot about it, not just read. I mean, yeah, you know, writing was something I would say writing is step two. So step one is research.
Right? So it's research, right?
That takes you days and months sometimes to know correctly about it. Like in my case, to write my third fiction, psychological thriller, I had to actually talk with a psychiatrist who I
Right.
know. Yeah. So because I was going to write about something, I was going to write about an illness, a mental illness. And I had to make sure that, I was putting in correct facts about that mental illness. So I really had to talk to my psychiatrist friend and find out that, what really happens to victims of such mental health
Mm.
disease. And that took me months itself.
Absolutely. So it's not
That
something, yeah, we don't sit down and just it just happens like magic. It takes you have to have a concentrated effort to make sure that the words that you say and the delivery that you give is the best that it can be.
Of course, and talking of concentration, that's a different issue. I mean,
Right.
focus and concentration. Like when you're writing, you also need that focus. Otherwise, you're not going to have the correct words and you're not going to have the correct sentences. So I think it's a lot of things put together that brings out the best of writing.
Mm.
And it ends not with the publication process, but it ends after it's published and readers have read it,
Right.
and they have reviewed it, they've read it, and you have come to
Right.
know that, okay, people have liked it, or at least your target audience, they have loved your book.
And when
So
you're
that's it.
talking about a certain era, for me, it was the 70s and the 80s. And that, throughout the whole first book, I was telling the characters to go to the refrigerator and get bottled water. Well, guess what? They didn't have bottled.
Oh my god. Okay, then what happened?
I had to take them all out. Yeah. And when you're writing, you don't even think about that. That's not even something I thought about because
Yeah.
now we go to the refrigerator and get bottled water all the time. But in the 70s and the 80s, it was just Perrier, I think. Yeah. And you get
Okay.
that at restaurants, right? You didn't have it at home. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
that kind of history that people don't even think about, that we have to think about when we're writing a book. So what's the most rewarding part about being an author?
So yes, so we do have our ups and downs, and we do have our good times and bad times, and challenges are, as I say, that it's very hard taking a responsibility and writing something and get it across to the audience and make them believe it. But then it does have its own rewards, like writing something and making people believe it, and putting forward a set of values
Yeah.
and beliefs and making people believe it. Of course, it's a reward in itself. So I think for an author, That's a reward. I mean, not just to get it published, as I said, but to have it read by people and believe it. So let's say if I'm talking about behind the curtains and so many people have already read it. So if I say that people are already accepting it and the concept of erotica, so that itself is a reward for me. So,
Absolutely.
so I think that's the most exciting part of being
Right.
a writer.
Right.
Mhm.
We were really surprised when the one lady read from my book, a very sensual part of it. I thought it was going to be, I didn't think Facebook would let it come up, but they let it happen. So it was important that people understand in erotica. We'll just switch back that to that for a minute. You know, sometimes it's very, you get tired of always having to think about sexual pleasure as something that's demonic or something that you have to put in a paper bag or something that you don't talk about in certain circles. And the only way we're going to get past that is if we write about it.
Yes. The only thing is when we write about it and people read about it.
Right.
That's the only thing you can have people, at least talk about it in the
Right.
open that, okay, I've read this and it talks about so and so. So at least you have people talking about it. I mean, as I said, it occurs everywhere. It's happening everywhere, but then people somehow they don't talk about it.
And unless we talk about it, then people won't talk about it. So it's good that we're both writing from a very sensual pleasure. I call it the pleasure principle. And people are actually talking about it now and not talking about it like it's something you should put in a paper bag and take outside and then look at. So thank you for that. It's not a it's not a good it's not a it's not the it's a hard situation to be in sometimes because people automatically put a label on you. Well, why are you talking about that? Well, I don't know why we can't talk about how we got here.
I know, yes, but since it's there, I wonder why we shouldn't be talking about it. I mean, it's not
We
a
all got
taboo
here
in
the same
society.
way.
It's not a taboo in society that we don't talk about it. I mean, it's there. I mean, people enjoy it, people do it, and so why don't you talk about it? There's nothing wrong in that.
Right,
I mean, we are not saints. We are not saint. That we have not dedicated our life to a religious organization or something that uh, we don't like sensual pleasure. So why not talk about sensual pleasures or sexual
right,
pleasures, as we call it?
right. The pleasure principle. But anyway, so I'm just glad that you and I and others are finally and let's just put it out there. It's more accepted by the general public if it's a man talking about sex
Mhm.
than a
Yeah.
woman talking about sex.
Um, I think it's accepted differently by both the genders. I mean, men accept it differently and women accept it differently. Um, you would be shocked to know, Donna, that in the present generation, I feel it's women who are more open about their
Mm,
feelings than the men crowd. I mean, a few years back, it was the men who was quite open, but now I think women are dominating in that respect in
oh,
some cases,
good. Yeah.
and women are really coming out and talking about they have started caring less for the society and traditions and stuff, and they've broken the boundaries and they're coming out in the open and they've started talking about their sexual preferences. They've started talking about what they enjoy doing and what they don't enjoy doing. So I feel that women now are more open, and they are more open minded, I would say,
Right.
and more liberal than the man generation.
I'm so glad that glass ceiling is being busted. Wow, it's just time. It's just really time. So we have a bunch of new authors and people out there writing manuscripts and thinking about what it is they want to do. Give us some do's and don'ts for a new author.
Well, yes, some do's and don'ts to all those debut authors out there is first decide what you're going to write. I mean, before you even start writing, first decide that this is what I'm going to write, and then think about the genre that you're going to write. Only then you can think about the particular language you're going to use, or uh, the particular characters you're going to choose, or the themes that you're going to write. If you don't know what kind of a writer you are, you can never get it across uh, to the publication process and to the people. So I think this is very important for debut authors, because I've known to be authors, debut authors, uh, who often ask me, who are writing their first book, and they often ask me that, like, I've written so and so and so. What genre it is? I mean, I say, okay, come on, like you have written something and you don't know what genre it falls under.
Right.
I mean, you don't know. So come on, like if you
Right.
don't know this, I mean, how are you going to pitch to
That's
the
step
publisher?
one. Step one.
That's step one. And we all know as authors how difficult the process it is. I mean, um, because if you don't know that, how are you gonna pitch it to publishers, and how are you going to talk about it to them that this is okay, this I am so and so, and this is my genre. Uh, uh, so I think that's very important. One of the most important do's for a debut writer. Um, Second thing is learn to accept challenges. It's not a bed of roses, because some people, they tend to think it's very easy, you just write it and publishers, they are in a queue waiting to take your work. It's not like that. Even J.K. Rowling got rejected by many publishers, and then
Time
finally,
and time and time again. Time and time
and
and time again.
and then she published Harry Potter. So learn to accept challenges. It's not every time that publishers are just waiting for you to just call you and say that yes, we are accepting your book. It doesn't happen. So there might be times that your books are rejected, most of the times, but then yes, of course, if you stick to it, it happens.
Right.
Talking about the don'ts, I mean, things that debut writers shouldn't be doing is uh, they shouldn't try to copy someone else's style of writing. Let's say a very famous author that they know about or they follow, they shouldn't be copying, because everyone, they have their own style of writing, and each author is unique in his or her own style of writing. So I feel that's something that I've seen debut authors doing that. I mean, I've known them that who have just tried to copy someone else's style, and it just doesn't work, because we are writing, somehow it depends on our personality too,
Right.
what kind of
Right.
the
Mhm.
kind of person I am, the kind of beliefs that I have, that's something that I'm going to put it down on my writing, because I'm expressing myself through my writing. So that's something they should avoid. um, do not choose plots, do not choose themes or plot that has been covered so many times. I mean, one of those romances where a poor girl, a poor naive girl falling in love with a business tycoon, and
Right.
you can understand that, right? A rich guy, because the guy always doesn't have to be rich always, and the girl doesn't have to be poor always, right?
Right.
It can be the
But
other way.
but how
So
many times can you do that romantic comedy? Right?
yeah, I
Exactly.
mean, so don't just keep doing things that have already been repeated so many times. Think of things that are unique, that probably has not been covered till now,
Hmm.
and you surely get your reward one day. So I think these do's and don'ts are quite important for debut authors.
And I want them to know that no is a legitimate answer. No is a legitimate answer, and you're going to get a lot of those. But yes is a legitimate answer too, and you're going to
Yeah,
get all you need is one.
yes. All you need is one
All you
yes.
need is one yes.
One yes.
So
But then you
through
have
all
to
the
wait.
no's, there will become a yes if you keep it. Keep
But then
trying.
you have to wait at it. I mean, you have to keep your fingers crossed and wait at it. I mean, it's not, you shouldn't just lose hope, and tear all your pages
Right?
that you've written, throw it in the
I'm done.
dustbin.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore.
You do that. I can understand it's frustrating, but then it kind of rewards you at the end. I mean, you
Now,
need to wait.
there's something that I don't do when I'm writing. I generally don't read other people's stuff because I don't want anything that they've given me
Someone else has written, yeah.
to put
Even
in. Right.
I don't do that, yeah, because I fear that if I'm reading too much of other people's stuff, I might
Right.
somehow be influenced by their style. It happens, like when you're reading a particular style too much, you tend to get influenced by
Right.
that. That's
And
not
so
something.
when I'm in the midst of writing, I don't read anything else. Now, the minute I stop writing, then I'm a reader. But while I'm
Okay.
writing, I tend not to read just because I don't want the influence from somebody else to say, oh yeah, I read that. Yeah, I could put no. I want those to be as original thoughts as listen, there's nothing new under the sun, right? But as
Yes,
original as we can get to put it
yes,
in our books,
definitely,
I think is
definitely.
important.
Because see, every one of us, we come from different backgrounds and from different cultural backgrounds and places, and we have different experiences in our life. And I'm sure, like, if we stick to our own experiences and our own background, we'll sure have themes and plots to write about. So it's not that you have to, write in a particular way that someone else is doing. Probably he's doing it because he's very good at it, and probably he's known to be an author only for his those particular talent, but does not mean that it's going to work with
Hmm.
everyone else.
So you have two young men. Did they have any aspirations to be authors?
None of them. None of them. So as I said, I come from a family that no one has ever thought of writing.
I mean,
Um,
your sons,
I have two sons,
right?
and they're nowhere near to writing. I mean, I've never seen them read. I mean, let alone writing, Donna. Uh, they're very much, science and technology kind of person. They are very much gadget kind of persons. So I feel I don't force them because I feel
Oh
everyone
no,
has their
yeah.
and they have their own dreams. They're definitely not good with reading and writing, but they are very good with gadgets and science and technology and thinking about, NASA, astronomy, and stuff. So, okay, I just leave them to that. But I think,
The only way I got my son to read was when I gave him a comic book. He's not going to sit down and read a novel, but when I
yeah,
was younger, right?
I think
But
it's same with me and same with. But anyway, I'm glad, Donna. I don't have a competitor in my
right,
family. I'm very
no
I'm,
competition.
I don't have any competition
So that's
from my
good.
own sons, and how difficult that would be for me
Oh, that's
to
too funny.
understand.
So, is there anything else you would like to share with us before we say good night?
Yes. So I've seen a lot in my life, actually, like starting from the city I grew up in Indonesia, sorry, in India, and then traveling all the way to Indonesia, working here, and getting settled here. So coming from India, so I was a kid, I was a teenager in my 90s. When it was 90s, so I was a teenager that time. I
Mhm.
was preparing for my grade 10 and I was preparing for my grade 12. And that was a time in India that was a mixture of cultural values. I mean, it had its own cultural values, and at the same time, a new modern international trend was
Right. It
setting
was just kind of, yeah. Hmm.
in. Yeah. And so it was quite confusing for teenagers at that time. Like, you have those family values at one set, and the other set, you go to college and you go to school, and you have those new international trend that's setting in. But then I feel that apart from confusing me, it was a kind of learning experience for me, and from where I get most of my ideas even today to write. So I feel I've been blessed in that way to be a kid, to be a teenager growing up in the 90s, and being in India, because it also gave me the chance to be an international writer, only because I grew up at such a wonderful time.
Right. Exactly.
I think people who have grown up in those times, they know um, the unique beauty of growing up in the 90s. So that was a total different value. I mean, so many things we didn't have. We didn't have mobile phones that time, and people used to write all the time. They would write letters and they would write postcards,
I
and
know.
we didn't even have a desktop. I mean, that came much later. Uh, so
When I get a handwritten piece of mail, I'm like, oh my God, somebody took the time to sit and write
right,
this.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you can imagine, Donna, like we used to devote a lot of our time writing to our friends and to our family members. We would write all those long letters. Do you remember it, right? Writing those long letters and then decorating it with those stickers and
Stickers.
cheap stickers and stuff. Yeah, I do remember it. And then it was a time. So when I was in my university and when I got married, the first mobile phone came in from Nokia, and not an Android version, of course, those basic Nokia sets of mobile phones. So that was a time of its own. I mean, that was an experience of my own, which I don't think that this generation kids they have.
No.
So it was two experience at the same time. I mean, the old things, the old values and traditions, plus the new setting trend and the coming of technology and everything. So I think that has helped me a lot in my writing.
So if you will leave us with a pearl of wisdom, we will let you go to bed.
Okay. Not a matter with me because I guess I'm used staying up late. But
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
talking about anyway, talking about my pearl of wisdom, I would say dream, never stop dreaming,
Mm.
and then dream big. Don't just dream, but then dream big. Like it is said, there's a very popular saying that if you're aiming for the moon, you can at least get the stars. So it's something like that. You should aim big. Only then you can be sure that at least 50% of that will be fulfilled. So it's same for the debut writers. I would say all of you out there, keep dreaming and
Mm,
keep accepting challenges. Don't
yeah.
give up. I mean, you will surely get rewarded one day or the other. I mean, it's a bit long process. It's not that easy,
Doesn't
but then
happen
of
overnight.
yeah, but then the prize that you get is countless. Nothing can count it.
Right. I keep telling everybody it's not the beginning and it's not
It's
the middle. It's always the end.
it,
What
I think
happens?
I
Yeah.
think it's a continuous process, Donna, and no matter and that's a benefit that writers have. No matter what your age is, like
Mm,
you can be over 60s, you can be over 40s. No matter where you stay, you can be staying in the United States, or you can be staying in Japan, or you can be staying somewhere in India. No matter where you are, that's something you can always do. I mean, you can always write. When you're over 60s, you can write. If you're a teenager, you can write. So I think that's the best part of being a writer.
it's
You
a
don't have any
profession
age
for everybody if you
for
take the
every,
time to do it. Right.
and you don't have any limits. I mean, age doesn't limit you.
No.
You don't have limits of a boundary, four walls of a room. You don't have a room or a classroom or a cabin. You can write anywhere of your choice. You can write about anything.
Oh, that's really good. That's good news. I never even thought about that, that you're in the middle of a profession that you can do at any time. And most of us, and maybe not for you, but most of us who are writers have been writing since like age 7. I've been writing since like age 7. So I always knew I was going to be a writer, right? It just that time, space gets in the way. You have to, be a mother, a wife, and da 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 da,
So many
and
things.
working, and then one day it clicks and it says, now's the time. This is something you've always wanted to do. Now's the time. So I'm with
Yeah.
you. I would tell them whenever you're ready, just pick up a pen and get it done.
Right. And talking about your book, Donna, you just said
Mm,
that you started writing at the age of
7.
7. So I should definitely be reading that if I have a
Right.
chance.
well, I mean, I think, when I talk about writing at age 7, I would just remember that we grew up in a household where there was a lot of people. And so if you only had a small compartmented, I think it was a closet that I could go into and write. And I always wrote about me and a boyfriend, or my girlfriend and a boyfriend, right? So, so
Yeah,
I,
no,
so writing erotica, I guess, is something that I started way back when. But you just have to go through your life and get to a point where you can do it. So anyway, thank you so much for being
long journey.
here. Yeah,
It's been a
and
long journey. I mean, it's a long journey for authors, and I think there's no end. It just continues. You just keep writing.
you just keep
Eventually,
writing. Yeah, and
you just
and yeah, you just keep writing. So thank you very, very much.
thank you,
And
Donna.
we
It's been
will
a
be
pleasure.
together again really, really soon. And thank you
Yeah,
being on.
I'm looking forward to it because
Oh
I really
yeah,
enjoy
oh yeah. I would like to do
talking
something
to
in midsummer, maybe. Yeah, we'll have to think about how we can put that together, even if it's on
you.
Zoom. Just everybody getting back together and talking about the
I
process.
think
Or
everyone is just getting used to this virtual online setting because we never thought of it. I mean, back then in 2019 or the end of 2018, we never thought that there would be a time when we would be on, we would be seeing each other virtually. But then I think it has
right.
its own benefits too. I mean, it's bringing all of us together.
The world has opened up completely. I mean, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met the
Yes,
colleagues in the UK. I now got colleagues in Ghana. That
that's right.
never
You
would have
can talk
happened.
to
So
anyone now. So I think that's a plus point that you're having. And definitely looking forward to meet you again, Donna, because I enjoyed my reading in the Read Aloud in the International Black Read Aloud Day. I think that was a really good initiative that you have taken, Donna. I mean,
thank you.
uh, reaching out to so many people out there. And I would say, as I say, it's a noble cause again, like different authors coming up and reading. And I enjoyed my session with you today too, in a fresh conversation. So, everyone out there, this is Donna in a fresh conversation with me, Briana, and I really enjoyed it. I look forward to it again. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you and have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you. Going to the beach.
Yes, you